Because Jensen Huang's the CEO of NVIDIA, his presentation at CES was already very, very scary, very terrifying. Terrifying in the sense where AI has reached to a point that it is, before it was his GPUs powering AI, that's what he was saying. And now he's saying the AIs are powering the GPUs.
We have a fantastic guest with us who has worn multiple hats across his career.
There's this new term that has been circling around X called vibe coding. Okay, so vibe coding basically means, I see something that I want to solve. I don't really know how to code. I can get AI to code, but the whole product itself may not have the full structure, but somehow it works.
How would you define great leadership if you had to pick at a few traits that you've seen throughout your journey?
I think a great leader is important to actually be a very good listener.
As much as the advancement in the quantum industry is happening, a parallel advancement has to happen in the defense of it, which is the infrastructures which use post-quantum cryptography.
If quantum computing is now really getting on its feet, it's not just a theory anymore, it can crack the private keys of all these crypto addresses.
The necessity, how should the crypto industry respond? What is the solution? So this is a problem that we have identified. And according to you, what is the prediction that how much time do we have as an industry to respond to this, and what should be the response?
I was the first Singapore company to ever get into 500 startups in the Silicon Valley. Leadership isn't now just about experience. It's really about your exposure. So that's why when ChatGPT came about, Singapore government did not say we're going to ban it.
Are you still holding those Bitcoins, by the way?
If I did not start the startup, yes, I would have held most of it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kapil Dhiman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Curanium. And I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Olivia Carlson, for an amazing episode of Quantum Minds. Welcome to this podcast. And today, we have a fantastic guest with us who has worn multiple hats across his career, from being an author to working with the government to coaching young minds, shaping their management careers, Mr. Anson. Anson, thank you for taking out the time and welcome to Quantum Minds.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Now, I'm 100% sure as the startup of this episode, I have not done justice to your introduction. I didn't even try, honestly, because I was sure that I'm not going to do justice to it. So if I can request you to explain your journey and the path that you have taken so far in your life and what you're doing right now to the audience. Over to you, please.
Thanks a lot. So my journey started off back in 2013 when I started to look into how startups are actually growing. So back then you have the Facebooks, the Ubers, and so on. I was actually managing a sort of a family fund back then, and then reached a point after the financial crisis in 2008 that I see a lot of startups popping up. And then that was in my mind already, where, wow, these startups are growing, they raised a lot of funds and so on. But then at the same time, one thing really caught my eye back then was when I was playing World of Warcraft, one guy in the game actually asked me, do you know about Bitcoin? So he actually came to me, and at that time, I actually just only bought the virtual gold from World of Warcraft. So I actually went back to him and said, is it something like World of Warcraft gold that I have to do it in a very non-legitimate way, to use cash and then to buy it? I said, no, you go and my name, I won't say what my name in the game is, okay? All right. So, but I told him, okay, fine, I'll read a white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto. So when I read it, I was very amazed. And at that time, I was like, okay, we have this, so now what? And then he asked me to go and buy some just to try it out. So I went to a site called Local Bitcoin. It is still around, but it's rebranded into another name. But it's basically a sort of decentralized peer-to-peer site where you can actually buy Bitcoin, buy crypto. So back then, obviously, there wasn't any exchanges at all. It was Bitcoin before the web blockchain came about, before fintech came about. And there was a guy that said, okay, I am willing to offer this much Bitcoin at the Hong Kong MTR station. So I was living in Hong Kong back then. So I went there. I told myself, at most, I'm going to lose 700 Hong Kong dollars plus my phone. Yeah. So I went to the station, and that guy literally just said, hey, just give me your phone. I gave him the money and the phone, gave me back the phone, and then I saw Bitcoin inside. Back then, I think it was $100 for the Bitcoin. So 7,000 Hong Kong dollars I used. So I bought it. I went back to the guy in World of Warcraft, and then he told me, he ran through the whole process of how it worked, show me blockchain.info and so on. I was amazed. One, I can use something digital to convert to cash and back. And two, everything was transparent. If you don't show who you are, owning the address is transparent yet at the same time private. So that got me on the crypto journey. I then started my startup in 2014. Back then was a startup that at the beginning was a Bitcoin point of sale. This was 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Obviously, I was in my own little rabbit hole thinking that everyone would love it. But actually, it was a bit too early. But then I was lucky. I was reaching to a point where the runway was already hitting my startup, to the point that 500 Startups was looking for Bitcoin entrepreneurs. Whether you have made revenue or not, they were looking for people just literally spraying to find who can be part of the accelerator. Obviously, there was a selection process. So I was lucky. I was the first Singapore company to ever get into 500 Startups in the Silicon Valley. So we moved over there for 6 months or so, because 3 months was the accelerator in Mountain View, and then we had to go and raise funds and so on. That was the greatest experience I had. Like back then was Dave McClure, who was one of the PayPal Mafia people as well, right? He was the one teaching us how to pitch and so on. I had the honor to be part of that batch where he was actually training us on how to pitch. So, but my startup pivoted to a blockchain remittance startup. So that dealt with a lot of the banks and so on. And we had, and at the same time, I was also the chair of the association, which a majority of the entrepreneurs in Singapore decided to bring me in and said, Anson, you know what, you should become chair, and then we can face the government and talk to them. And then when I became chair, it was quite interesting. I thought, well, wow, I was the one leading the whole association. But then my mentor back then told me, who's passed away a few years ago, he said, Anson, your main aim to meet the government is to have the next meeting, not to pitch everything that you want and then they accept you. Your main goal is to get the next meeting. That changed my mindset, because the government doesn't really know who you are. They have their own things to do, and they'll be very skeptical of you. You have like 10 kids from Bitcoin, they don't even know what Bitcoin was, and we go and pitch it to them. This was back in 2014, right? So, okay, I listened to my mentor. He told me first meeting is to have the next meeting. So I want to make sure that I don't give everything to them, get them interested. That worked out well. So we started talking to the regulators. Here is the Monetary Authority of Singapore. And from 2014, we built up the members in the association to the point that the regulators were treating us much more seriously. To the point in 2017, around 17, 18, they came to ask us, Anson, I think we need to engage to the next level, because we in Singapore, there were a lot of banks closing down a lot of the bank accounts of the crypto startups. And a lot of them, when they lose their bank accounts, it's very hard to operate. But maybe I have my character from Hong Kong. When things happen, and especially I'm the head of the association, I started making noise, saying that this is not right and so on. And then there was one article that went on Bloomberg to talk about this. So obviously, I think the Singapore government didn't really take it that that well. Wanted to calm down the effects of this of the press. And then a few months later, we started working on something called the Code of Practice. So Code of Practice is the AML anti-money laundering, counter-terrorist financing document that shows the different stakeholders what the crypto companies do to mitigate all these ML, money laundering, and terrorist financing measures. So we, the association with the consultation of the Association of Banks, as well as the Monetary Authority of Singapore and our industry, I had to mediate all three parties to make sure we have a document that everyone is happy with. So that was where I really upped my skills on mediation, getting consensus, and so on. Then in 2019, I had to go to the next level where MAS asked me, Anson, do you know about something called the travel rule? It's not something that we talk much about now because it's part of the ecosystem. Basically, it's transparency between different crypto startups and with the banks. Because in crypto, you can send money without knowing the other person. But sending through the banks, you have to know the customer's information, right? So I said, I don't know much about that. Yes, I've been in the industry, but it's not something that I really have heard of before. So then they introduced me to a supranational government agency called Financial Action Task Force. So that was my first experience to talk to someone outside of Singapore. So I was invited to the meeting in 2019 in June 2019 in Vienna. That was when they announced that all across the board around the world, all crypto companies must eventually be registered or licensed. That meeting really made an impact on me because you had banks on one side, crypto companies on the other side, and everyone just arguing with each other, and the government right in the middle looking at both sides. Right? So that changed the whole industry because from then on, we know that Singapore very soon will also have a licensing regime, which they had in 2020, January 2020. That's when the licensing regime came in place called the Payment Services Act. So, but I couldn't spend enough time on my startup that I had to also give it up because I'd spent a lot of time on doing this and couldn't raise enough funds for it. So one of my biggest mistakes, definitely running a startup, is that time needs to be spent on it, as well as when you are making money, keep pushing for more help to help you fundraise at a higher level. That was one of my lessons back then. But then afterwards, after my startup, I then started working on the diploma in blockchain for one of the tertiary institutions here. And after a while, then I got invited, offered to be as head of compliance of a licensed crypto firm. So this was my is an interesting experience because now I have helped the government make all the rules. Now I am like listening to my own rules. I have to now abide by my own rules because as head of compliance for the firm, and then was promoted to chief strategy officer to work with different parties and so on. So that was my adventure for 1.5 years. And now after that, since last November, I started writing books. My newest book is actually Understanding Bitcoin, why everyone should own it. But the one that I have right now, both of them are in the market already on Amazon, Leadership Skills for New Managers. Because what I'm seeing now, there's a huge demographic shift, especially the way how the Gen Z and like my kids, like Gen Alphas, they're very different from us. People say that they don't want to communicate with people. They don't know what risks are. They don't know the difference between virtual currency and the real world. It's actually not true. I'm actually seeing them. They understand risk much more than us because they have by default been in the digital age since birth. But at the same time, their people skills, I can see it lacking. So right now, I'm just building up my YouTube channel, doing a lot of different smaller sections of my book. Like in a few weeks' time, I'll be talking about how to receive and give feedback to people that are younger than you and older than you, because getting feedback is not easy from people. It's not easy to accept it or even to give properly. So that's my journey now. I am more on this leadership topic, but I'm still the chair of the association right now. So still dealing with a lot of working with the industry and the government. But leadership is my main baby right now. I'm building that up.
Very interesting journey, I must say. Much respect for your journey. I think from the 7,000 Hong Kong dollars buying Bitcoin at Hong Kong to now chairing this association, it's like a really long journey that you have covered, right? Are you still holding those Bitcoins, by the way?
If I did not start the startup, yes, I would have held most of it. But in hindsight, it was very hard to hold it because a lot of people would say that you can hold it a lot of people will hold it for the long term.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a tech that is so new, a lot would have sold it 100, 200% return, right? But the ones that held it was great. But I most of the Bitcoins that I had was put into the startup already.
Yeah, I'm sure. And what has been your greatest learning, Anson, from working with the public sector, operating in the private sector, especially for an industry like crypto? How are the two independent? What's the mindset within the government, and of course, how opposite is it from the way of functioning in the private sector, and where do they converge?
Very good question. So it took me a while to understand that this is where I also talked about in the leadership side of things. Empathy became very important because on the government side of things, they are really just employees. Many of them have a single mandate to do something, and you're asking them to do something outside of what they want to do, they wouldn't want to do it. So we need to, one, give them the right incentive, even if it's the ones that are not making the decisions, to actually get them interested into it. Okay, so for example, talking to a particular person in the government, if it is something that if you don't learn about this now and it may affect their job, that will be an incentive for them to learn, because they will be, once it really hits them when something goes wrong, it may affect their public sector career. So one thing, for example, when Mt. Gox, a very old crypto exchange, when it fell, I can see within the government, they were rushing the regulators to quickly learn what the heck is going on, right? But we gave them a sort of a hint that something is going to come up, right? So for the government side of things, they're really just employees. But for the private sector, they are here to not just learn about their job, they're here to so-called jump. Jump meaning they're working in a particular job, they learn more, they can jump to a higher salary. So to combine with these two things, it was initially quite hard because private sector, their main aim is to profit. People in the public sector is one, they're just trying to keep their jobs. Two, especially in Singapore, they want to make sure that when things go wrong, that the Singaporeans are there to support the new controls when things do go wrong. They don't want them like complaining as much, right? But not to say that they're trying to prevent them, but just that they just want to make sure that when it hits, when things really go wrong, they just want the population to be very calm. So basically, to answer your question, by combining both, it is very important to hear both sides, what their interests are. And then I need to find a way to come to a consensus, a win-win for both sides to move something forward. So to me, getting a consensus, someone taught me this, and I'm always going with this principle, is as long as both sides are not unhappy, I have reached my goal. You cannot make everyone happy. As long as they are not unhappy, then that's how I reach to our consensus.
Very interesting. I'm really fascinated about, you kind of having this long trajectory of being in the space of blockchain and tech in general, but then also your interest for leadership. And like just listening a little bit to some of the things that you're explaining, how would you define like great leadership if you had to like pick at a few traits that you've seen throughout your journey?
I think I treat myself as a student now, even though I've been leading different teams. I think a great leader is important to actually be a very good listener. Because there's a lot of things where a lot of bad things could have been prevented if your team that you have been leading, because in today's day and age, how I see teams now, a lot of them actually have skills better than a lot of leaders, because information today is free. Everyone can learn anything. So when you are leading a younger team, many of them actually may have skills better than yourself. So it's in today's day and age, it's not really about experience. It's about being able to spot talent within your team and then encourage them to actually do something, encourage them to also become leaders, but you listen to them and put your ego aside. A lot of leaders today still have a lot of ego when trying to train or be with a team. And then they would like to say things that are very complex, not basically trying to show that they are a very strong leader. But in today's day and age, I really see that everyone has skills that you will not have as a leader that you've been in a company for, let's say, over 20 years. So listening is now the key skill, and empathy is as important. These two skills are the most important today.
And do you see it any different when today in the crypto age, right? It's super fast moving. It's a completely different generation, so to say, which is leading the crypto narrative. Mostly, people in their 20s or early 30s are leading these crypto companies. Do you see that any different from, non-crypto industries, where years of experience is still given much more weight than anything else, right? For example, I come from a Big Four world. I spent some good 7 years with PwC, and there it's a classic hierarchy model. Like every 2 or 3 years, if you're performing well, that's when you get promoted. So you become a leader only after you have crossed a certain age and you have a couple of gray hair. Without that, you're not qualified. Versus in an industry like crypto, like you can have a great idea and you did some good volume. Even if you're 25, you're running a company of 100 people and you are a leader. How do you see the definition of leadership changing in these two situations?
This is a very good question as well. Today's leadership really makes the word experience quite obsolete. Combined with how the younger generation views things. So I'll get back to this. There's one story that one of the ex-regulators told me about the daughter. This was basically in my mind, combined with one of the things that I saw on X. So this ex-regulator was telling me about NFTs, that one day her son, asked her, can I have some money to buy a pair of shoes? Okay, so then she gave her money to buy a pair of shoes, but immediately the kid went on the phone, not on a Amazon website, but onto some DeFi website. Indeed, he bought a pair of shoes, but not a real pair. It's an NFT. Why is this very important? Because for the younger generation, to them, a digital piece of good has the same value to them as a physical piece. So for example, even my kids today, if for example they misbehave, I took their iPads away, okay, they're not allowed to play a certain game, they are happy watching someone else play the same game on YouTube. It gets into them. It's the same sort of a joy as not using your fingers. But for me, when I play on my PlayStation, I play on my Nintendo Switch, I actually want to play. Someone else playing for me, I can't do that. So I don't really watch on Twitch, whereas the younger generation would do that. So the behavior is now very different. The older generation is still trying to understand this. Whereas I think for us, the generation Y, I will call it, we're actually right in between the two sides. All right. So, I mean, maybe you're not Gen Y, sorry. I'm a Gen Y. So I see leadership also so coming back to this, there are, if you can see technology today, it's moving so fast, especially now with AI. Even I get worried if I want to start something new, when will I get obsolete? Right? When will I get obsolete? Because now, literally, I can code very quickly with, there's this new term that has been circling around X called vibe coding. Okay. So vibe coding basically means, I see something that I want to solve. I don't really know how to code. I can get AI to code. Yes, I need to learn a bit on how, if things go wrong, how it should work. But the whole product itself may not have the full structure, but somehow it works. So vibe coding has become a thing where if it becomes bigger, then if it catches the attention of the investors, people will then put money in. So why is this important? Leadership isn't now just about experience. It's really about your exposure to the technologies out there and seeing who is faster. And at the same time, yes, you gain your experience along the way. But like you said, just then, if a 25-year-old luckily gets traction with the product, with 100 people, I'm pretty sure his journey will reach a point where I'm 25 now, I have some success, I'm taking it for granted, I then flop on the floor and then start again. Like the cycle of building up the experience is very different from the old days where you can steadily build it up. So it's sort of is similar, but the cycle of building towards leadership looks more up and down than before. If you get what I mean, like leadership now, it's really more about your exposure and willing to learn, and not just sitting there and seeing what others are doing. Now you can actually get your hands dirty and do something up very quickly, unlike you being a manager. Yeah,
you're not as reliant on like the systems in place or the hierarchies for your own journey and validation, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you touched upon the new technologies and how that is also changing the way people operate and the way people function today. That got me thinking about a technology that we are very much diving deeper into, and that's quantum. So any views on quantum computing? And especially, I would love to have your point of view from a government side of things here in Singapore, which is like really much more progressive in emerging technologies. What do you think about the quantum industry?
So after Microsoft introduced the new tech, for me, it was a wake-up call, at least for the crypto side. Because if quantum computing is now really getting on its feet, it's not just a theory anymore. It can crack the private keys of all these crypto addresses, right? So, because there was at a point before the Microsoft tech came out that the guys in crypto were saying, I will talk about the government side. Well, but the crypto guys were saying that it will still take a few more years before quantum really comes up. But I'm pretty sure Microsoft, when they do their research, will leverage on all sorts of technologies, including AI, to come up with the quantum tech that they have now, right? So, quantum is similar principle to AI that, at least for Singapore, it is not going to ignore any technology. Our previous Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong, said once that we are fighting here, Singapore is fighting here for the survival, right? So if we get something wrong, that's basically the end of Singapore already. No one will be willing to save you. So it's more important to actually embrace new technology, see how it works. If it benefits the society, that's great. If not, then it's something learned. So that's why when ChatGPT came about, Singapore government did not say we're going to ban it. They're actually embracing it and learning to see how it can get the whole society to also embrace it. But I don't think every government will be like the Singapore government. Some were very frightened when ChatGPT came about, right? I think Italy was one of them, was very frightened before, saying they wanted to ban it, or one of the European countries. But there is basically no choice. If the governments don't push forward, even with quantum, they are going to lose out. Yeah.
And also just leveraging the convergence of all of these technologies into one. I mean, if you're able to embrace quantum while you're embracing AI, and the more knowledgeable you become within these areas, and you use them or you leverage them to kind of amplify one another. I mean, you use quantum computing to amplify AI, for example, whatnot. You can create an exponential growth, I suppose.
Yes, because Jensen Huang's the CEO of NVIDIA, his presentation at CES was already very, very scary, very terrifying. Terrifying in a sense where AI has reached to a point that it is, before it was his GPUs powering AI. That's what he was saying. And now he's saying the AIs are powering the GPUs. The new GPU that he has, the small golden one, I think it's called 5070, is costs half the price of, and it's the same power as just one generation older. Why that is important is because what he was trying to demonstrate, right now AI is able to predict the pixels on the screen. Like, for example, I don't know if you have used a graphics tool called Midjourney, Leonardo.ai. It's very similar analogy where you have a picture that is 300 by 300 px by pixels. It can predict. If you say that I want a picture that is 1000 by 2000 with just the 300, it can predict the pixels. And that is exactly what the same analogy they're doing for the GPUs. So imagine by adding quantum computing in, it's going to make it even faster and even cheaper for all the things that NVIDIA will be coming about, which makes them even more competitive.
Wow, fascinating actually. And but my curiosity takes me back to the point that you started your response on when I asked the question about quantum.
Yes.
Its impact on crypto. Do you want to expand it a little more?
Yes.
Quantum, and now again, quantum AI coming together, or independently, even if we talk about the impact of quantum computing on the security of crypto, how do you see that evolving, and what do you see as the next step which will be important for the crypto industry?
Okay. So before the announcement of Microsoft changed everything, because before that, the whole community, from what I'm reading, they're saying that, okay, we have another 5 to 6 years or so before we really need to come together as a community to see how to prevent quantum computing breaking the addresses, the crypto addresses. So how does crypto work? I'll try to keep it short. Basically, there's this ecosystem called miners, Bitcoin mining. Mm-hmm. But mining isn't really using spades. It's literally, there's this big algorithm under Bitcoin where these miners have computers trying to guess the number that the Bitcoin algorithm is holding. And if you guess it right, then you will be rewarded with a Bitcoin. At the same time, your other role is to keep check of the security of the network. Now, in order to break the network, there's this thing called the 51% attack, which means that if there are enough miners that come together to get 51% of the voting when there is any big changes, you basically can change the network. And a lot of times before the quantum computing narrative came about, there has been a lot of people trying to break the blockchain. And in order to basically hack the Bitcoin blockchain, you will need to be able to copy the entire chain, so to speak, and when also the new ones that come up. And then when it can mimic the whole chain before the new block comes out, you basically are able to hack the blockchain because you're able to connect the new one to yours. Now with quantum computing, it can create and mimic, in theory, create and mimic this whole the chain if the speed is fast enough to quickly tell the Bitcoin blockchain network that, hey, I am actually the real chain when I'm actually not. So quantum computing, by including AI, if you from a theoretical perspective, AI can then help analyze if the chain is it accurate enough to tell people that I am actually a real one, but I'm actually fake at the same time. So what is scary with quantum is that they're able to calculate much more quickly than before. And if they're able to mimic the chain, they can literally create a 51% attack very quickly.
Okay. And how about the private key encryption security? Do you see it the same way?
Yes, see it the same way, because you're basically trying to brute force. One of the ways is to brute force the seed phrase or the public and private key. The public private key, this technology has existed since the 70s. So we're actually using the 70s technology in a very new tech.
Yeah.
Right. So if quantum computing is fast enough to brute force the actual keys, it basically can mimic the private key and find out which one pairs with the public key.
Right. And that's like really, really scary because of the exponential growth that we are seeing of the crypto industry. Currently, I think it's $3.5 trillion worth of assets.
Yes.
Well,
now it dropped to around 1.5 trillion ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that much, like trillions of dollars at stake.
Yes.
So that's how serious it becomes. What do you think is the necessity? How should the crypto industry respond? What is the solution? So this is a problem that we have identified. And according to you, what is the prediction that how much time do we have as an industry to respond to this, and what should be the response?
I think even before the time we talk about, I think we need another catalyst before the whole industry comes about. The last few soft forks and forks really only came about when something serious is happening. And then it's like this, because it's a decentralized ecosystem. Only when there's a lot of people being affected, then the people will come together.
Yeah.
Right. But somehow, every time when something needs to be done, we just have to be hopeful that they will come in time. But now, if you have governments also having strategic Bitcoin reserves like the US, they will definitely be watching. Hey, is quantum really going to affect us? They're going to get people to go and check. So now we even have stakeholders. Not just as the individual entrepreneurs, you also have governments coming in to be part of the conversation, which to me is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where I think post-quantum cryptography is going to take the center stage.
Yes.
And all the projects are going to be expected to upgrade their encryption, and a new breed of projects and infrastructure will start coming into importance using post-quantum cryptography. Correct. To avoid and you know I always see it in a way that as much as the advancement in the quantum industry is happening, a parallel advancement has to happen in the defense of it, which is the infrastructures which use post-quantum cryptography.
Yes. So I'm pretty sure when there are is very similar to viruses, right? By right, when you're creating one, you're trying to create one to anti the virus anyway. I think in the computing world it's very similar, but the quantum will go to at its own pace, which is very exponential. But I think only when something catalyzes the crypto industry or the Bitcoin ecosystem, then only then they will come together. But I don't know when that will happen.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that really will also pave the way for the mindset, whether it is the government or the private sector, to start thinking differently in terms of, okay, what next? Because that's usually a question which goes unanswered when a trend is being followed. I'm referring to AI here.
Yes.
Right? Of course, AI has become a part of our lives now. But at the same time, because AI started moving forward, everybody started thinking that only AI is the future.
Yeah.
Which is true to an extent, but there is much more to it. Like, these new technologies like quantum and the convergence of quantum in AI, and of course, blockchain are paving the way for a decentralized infrastructure. When society has to progress, it also has to be multidimensional. It cannot be just single dimensional, even when we look at the technological advancements, so to say. So thank you so much for highlighting this piece, because I think that's a very important message that goes to the audience about where the world is moving and how seriously it is moving and advancing towards emerging technologies like quantum, AI, blockchain. We touched upon these pieces. Any concluding message that you would like to give, especially to Gen Zs, because I know you're writing a book for them and the business managers. But I would love your point of view specifically for the Gen Zs. What would you like to tell them? So
for Gen Zs, it's important that no matter how much time we're spending on our devices, on your desktop or laptop and so on, people skills is still a very important thing, because in order to get things done, let's say, for example, today you're able to use AI to create a piece of code, create an app that's getting traction. So what would be your next step, right? Your next step can't be staying in your own bedroom coding. You still need to be coming out to talk to people, right? So I think it's important to build up the people skills. I know it is not easy. So yeah, not just on the chatting with people. Find time if there's ways to speak to your friends or join some community groups. Go out there, talk to more people, and play World of Warcraft. Yes. You'll find somebody who will advise you for them. You'll find somebody, like now you can advance into Call of Duty. I love Call of Duty. By the way. Yes. So you'll find somebody who will advise you about buying Bitcoin. Yes. Awesome. Thank you so much, Anson, for taking out the time. It was such a pleasure speaking with you. You touched upon so many interesting points. It was a very wholesome conversation. What do you think? Yeah, definitely. It gives a very sort of multidimensional and full view, big picture of what's happening in the space, and also the context of your own journey from the early days of Bitcoin all the way to where things have progressed today. So thank you for that. Very interesting. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure. And how can people reach out to you? You're starting a YouTube channel about your book. What's the best way if the audience wants to reach out to you and stay connected? Yes, so you can reach me out on X. I have a very cryptic handle, unfortunately. It's 0xA8L, because Anson Zeall, A8L. 0x is basically Ethereum, but that's another story. And then on YouTube, it's Leadership Digest. So youtube.com / @Leadership Digest. You will have my leadership content there as well. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much once again, Anson. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for taking out the time. That was Anson. You learned a lot about decentralized technology, quantum, AI, and leadership. Stay tuned for our next episode, Quantum Minds.